Alright, we're going to go over the new MMP. This is the newest one they just released, I don't know, a couple months back or earlier this year, that comes standard with the optic cut, suppressor height sights, and their new trigger. This is the compact version in 9mm, in case you were wondering. We'll start with the slide. You get front serrations that come standard on it. They're not too aggressive, but they're good enough. You get suppressor height sights. They're a decent size. You can get a nice co-witness with your optic. You don't really need sights taller than that, and if you're not using an optic, they're not too tall to use for if just running irons. It uses a plate system, obviously, and it does come with 7 plates, so they should have one for your optic. And you get 6 sets of screws. I'm running the RMR. When I read the manual, it said to use the screws that come with the RMR, so I got my RMR screws out and I was comparing them to some of those, and I ended up using the doctor screws that come with the MMP because they're very similar. They're just a little bit longer, and I wanted more thread engagement, so I just went with the doctor screws. And unlike some guns where you screw the optic to the plate and then screw the plate to the optic, these screws just go through your optic, through the plate, and into the slide. So it's just one set of screws, which is nice. You get back straps, and you get the texture that MMP is known for. So it's pretty aggressive without getting over aggressive. I do like the texture, and you get 4 back straps or palm swells, whatever you want to call them. I'm running one that has the beaver tail type thing on it, just because it gives me a little bit more distance between the face of the trigger and the back of the frame, just because I got a little bit bigger hands. So I went with that, and it has the new trigger. I do like the new trigger, and the safety tab in it is pretty thick, so it's not a thin one that's like on a Glock trigger. So I do like the trigger. When I first got it, it was a little bit gritty, and I realized that it was the extension when it was disengaging the firing pin safety, so I stoned that and I smoothed it out. I'll show you in a minute, but it was a little bit gritty, and after I did that, it's a lot better now, and I actually really like the trigger. So when you pull it, you'll hit your first wall, which is just the firing pin safety disengaging, but it's easily pulled through, and you actually hit the wall when your sear is about to drop right there. So there's almost no creep and not that much over travel. So it is a decent trigger. I do like it, especially since I smoothed it out a little bit. It's pretty good. The reset, it's not too long, but it's not too short either. It's right there. A lot of people wish it was more audible and tactile. It isn't bad. Once I did some work on the trigger, it's a little bit louder now, but it's not a bad reset. So when you disassemble, they still have that little lever in there, so if you want, you can use a tool to push it down. Then when you remove the slide, you want to pull the trigger. They drilled all the way through the top of the slide for the optic screws all the way at the bottom, so that is nice. You get a lot of thread engagement, and there's 2 sets of holes depending on which optic you have and which plate you're using. So there's lots of thread engagement, which I do appreciate. You also get a metal guide rod like on the other MMPs, which I do appreciate too. When I first got it, it was a little bit gritty, so I realized pretty quickly that it was the extension making contact with the firing pin safety when it was disengaging it. So I went ahead and I deburred this, I stoned it, and I polished it, so it's nice and smooth now. I also did the same to the side of the disconnect, which makes contact with the trigger bar and this extension right here. And it made the reset just a little bit louder. I'll show you the reset real quick. When you pull the trigger, sorry, the camera's not focusing. but when you pull the trigger, it makes contact with that disconnect, pulls the sear down. When you reset, it pushes the trigger bar to the side and puts your sear back up. And that's the reset right there. So you pull it, disconnect, pushes the sear down. There's a little cam in the slide which will push the trigger bar off to the side under recoil. And when you reset, it's just moving up and around that disconnect. So it is a little bit louder now that I've done some work onto it. And overall, it's not a bad trigger at all. I really like the new M&P. The trigger is probably, it's better than the Glock Gen 5 trigger, especially now that I smoothed it out a little bit. But I actually don't mind the Glock Gen 5 trigger at all. This one's just a little bit lighter, I think. But if you're on the fence about getting the M&P, I'd say go ahead and get it, either this or the Glock MOS. So they're pretty similar in price, and I like them both, honestly. I guess it just depends on which one you want. Some people like the ergonomics of the M&P a little bit better, or maybe the texture, but I like both of them for different reasons, and I trust both of them. So it's a nice gun. You'll get you only get 2 magazines. I wish it came with 3 magazines, but yeah, if you want more than 2 magazines, you're gonna have to buy some extra. But and they're a little bit more expensive than a Glock mag, but they are metal magazines, and they're good quality magazines too. I really like the Smith & Wesson magazines. But other than that, if you have any questions or concerns, just put them in the comments or email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.